Hey there, YouTube! Welcome back to Artichoke Dip. And as you know, my name is Rob. I'm the solo tabletop gamer. And so I wanted to make a quick, little short video. Wanted to give some shout outs, answer some questions, and overall, just, tell you how much I really appreciate all your wonderful comments on the video. And I'm really glad you enjoyed it. I was kind of a little worried as to how it would be perceived because, I always kind of felt like people would lose interest in a solo play, watching a solo playthrough, but evidently I was wrong. So, well, maybe what I need to do is do some more of those. But I'm going to go through some of the comments on the video, and I figured rather than sitting and typing all these things out, I'm just going to answer them. And so let's start at the top. And first comment I have here is from Shotguns and Machetes, asking, what state are you in? Well, that's simple. I am in the great state of Michigan. So as you can imagine, when our winter months hit, otherwise known as the frozen hell of Michigan, as I like to call it, you really don't have a whole lot to do if you do not like the cold weather like myself, and gives you great time for gaming. The next one is from Deploribus Rex. This vid is just what the doctor ordered. Well, I'm glad to hear that, and I'm very glad you enjoyed that. Thank you very much. So, I have Falkder. I'm sorry if I slaughtered your name. Falkdr. Falkder. Great little solo RPG corner you build for us here on YouTube. Keep up the great stuff. Thank you so much, and thank you for your great comment. So, I have Felipe Pasquini, and I'm sorry if I'm slaughtering your names. Very nice video. Congrats on the video. Thank you very much, and thank you for subscribing. The next one I have is from Andy Simmons. Says, excellent video. I hope you're feeling better. Take care. Thank you very much, Adam, and thanks for subscribing. The other one, and I'm just going to name off the names from here on out, and at that point, give you guys a shout out. Thank you very, very much. So, the next one is Nanthor Palantir, and I'm very sorry if I did not pronounce that correctly, but he left a comment that said, very cool, I'm getting ready to solo 5th edition. Thanks for your video. Alright, man, game on, game on. Good for you. Steve Thomas. Hey there, Steve. Special shout out to you. And he writes, hi, Rob. Love the videos as always. Where did you find the Dungeon Saga door set? Well, Steve, I found those the same place I found these. And that would be my favorite online store. As my wife says, if I was a transformer, I would be Amazon Prime. And so I found these on Amazon. And Dungeon Saga, believe it or not, is a miniature game unto itself. And some of the pieces are quite pricey. But, I have to say, if you're like me and you really enjoy quality 28mm terrain because you enjoy playing miniatures and RPGs, and you really like to have an excellent three-dimensional battle grid, or battle map I should say, these are definitely worth the money and the way to go. They are made out of very good quality. I don't want to say they're a resin, but it's a very good quality plastic. It's not brittle. It's very durable, and they take paint quite easily. As a matter of fact, I was able to paint these up in an afternoon. And as you know, for most of you guys out there, when you paint minis and stuff, you get some that you know, it seems like the paint just does not like to adhere to it as well, so you have to do several coats, and sometimes that takes away from some of the detail. But I have to admit, with this door set, I did not have that problem. It took paint extremely well, and I love the way that they turned out. So yeah, you can find those on Amazon, and just put in the keyword search Dungeon Saga, and it'll be underneath the Dungeon Doors pack. All right. So the next one I have is from Jeff B. Cool. It's always interesting to see the solo play techniques of someone else. Keep up the good work. I will, and you as well, Jeff. Game on, my friend. TD Bar. Nice video. One of your best, I think. Well, thank you very much. I like how you created and narrated your backstory. I find solo tabletop fantasy fascinating. I've never really done it before via pen and paper, but have my roots in the 1980s as a kid getting into Commodore 64 games like Legacy of the Ancients and Legend of Black Silver, Bard's Tale, etc. Never had a chance with friends to give pen and paper a chance. Thanks for sharing. Well, you're really welcome. And, you know, I can... If you want to try the pen and paper experience, I would really suggest picking up For Against Darkness and sitting down with that one. It's a very simple game system. It's not very complicated. You know, it's an easy read. It'll probably take you about, 20 minutes to read the entire book over and get the gist of the game and get you right into it. So, if that's something that you're interested in getting into, TD, I suggest check out For Against Darkness. I think you would be very pleasantly surprised. Okay, so I have one here from Starkley's Man Cave. Will you do a video on this Scarlet Heroes solo Mythic alternative system you are using? I was going to buy Mythic based on your other videos. But if Scarlet Heroes one is a better way to go, it might be better to get that. What is the difference, or what is the Oracle? Okay, that's a great question, and towards the end of this video, once I get the shoutouts done, I'm going to explain that. I got both books here, and I'm going to get into that to help you guys make a more informed decision as to what kind of solo emulator you may want to get for your gaming table. So, all right, Donnie Inman. Also, do they sell just a copy of the emulator without the system core rules like what they did with Mythic? I don't believe they did. When I get into the video a little bit later, I'm going to explain why. And okay, then it says here, sorry, I would have watched another 5 minutes. My question was answered. Well, you're very welcome. And then he continues on saying, like the look of the emulator and it working with existing modules. I've got a bunch of old modules that I had bought as a kid and never got around to playing. Would love to get back to them now, just to find where they're stored. Well, can't help you there, Donnie. Good luck with that, and thank you very much, my friend, and game on. All right. Starkley Man Cave again commented, this has been brilliant to watch. Actually getting to see the physical side of solo RPG. You do great videos, but sometimes it gets confusing, probably because my journey, us starting out, so actually seeing what you talk about in real is brilliant. Really hope you do more. Well, I'm glad to hear that, and I'm glad that you guys enjoyed it. It was actually enjoyable for me because I could just set the camera up and go through and play my game and enjoy it. And, you guys could just basically be along for the ride and watch. So I'm glad you guys really enjoyed it. And I'm glad you guys really liked that. And I will do more. I just wasn't sure as to how well it would be perceived, I guess I should say. All right, Jedi Ninja Knight. Good video and a great chat. Love the music. Well, thank you very much. Believe it or not, most of those tracks were copyright free from YouTube, but there were 3 tracks on that music list that I had wrote and played myself. That's my own music. And I appreciate that very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, Shane Enigans. Shenanigans. All right. I love it. Yeah, 5th edition solo playthrough. And I have a copy of Scarlet Heroes, knocking about too, smiley face. All right, man. Get to it and game on, my friend. Thank you so much. So Paul Di Melto, he says, I have also switched to using the back of Scarlet Heroes in place of Mythic. Good choice. All right, game on, my friend. I think you understand what I'm talking about, and I'm going to get into that here in a minute. So, Ha M writes, great video. What fantasy system do you think is best of all for most people? Question mark. Do you seem to use Mythic, D&D 5th, basic fantasy, role-playing, etc.? Ha ha ha. Okay, well, I cover a lot of different role-playing games, and these are just different games that some of them I have picked up on suggestions from other people, or they're like, hey, have you checked this out, and picked them up. Some of them I've liked, and, you know, I was like, wow. And others, they're kind of like, it's okay, it's just another retro clone of Basic Edition. So, when it boils back down to what game system do I really like, well, that's a hard question. I love fantasy settings. So, you know, D&D, of course, I love. I love Palladium Fantasy. I love Ruin Quest. And really what I should say, what really draws me to certain systems is actually the game mechanic, for one. And two, the overall setting. Good example with Hero Quest. You know, it's set in the Bronze Age, and it's a D100 system, but you're not really limited to a class or a race like D&D, so you have more freedom, and there's a lot more variability to that game system, in my opinion. Whereas of D&D, D&D it's a templated RPG system where it's kind of, you know, it's cookie cut out. You got a strict framework that you have to work within and operate. But, you know, for what it is, I love it. And, of course, Palladium Fantasy. I've talked about Palladium Fantasy a lot. And Kevin did a great job with Palladium Fantasy, whether you like Palladium, hate them, or in between. But it was brilliant how the system utilizes a D20 with a percentile system side by side with the skills. And so, you know, it's a hard question to answer there. You know, what game system do I think is best of all for most people? Well, I'm going to have to say, you know, D&D is a great introduction role-playing game for people just getting into the gaming. And some people may argue with me about that, but the reason why I say that is D&D, if you look at D&D compared to most other role-playing games, it is by far the most simple game system to be able to roll up your attributes and be able to formulate a character and get into a game and understand the mechanics of the game. And it doesn't really matter which edition you're in, there's still the same, I should say, overall framework of that particular game system that carries over from edition to edition to edition. So, you know, regardless of what edition a new player may be getting into, even if they may decide to go the solo route or play with a group and if they were to go to a group that's playing a newer edition, they're still going to have that idea of the framework of how the game works and be able to, how should I put this, learn and expand upon it. So I think that's enough, and I could sit here and go off on that for a while. I'm not. Thank you for the question. Thank you very much. Game on, my friend. Alright, so I have a comment here from Touch Me. It's cool to see you checked out 5th edition. I think it's the most solo compatible. I have to agree with that. Though in the recent months, I found Fate Core to be my go-to solo system. That is awesome, man. That is awesome. I am happy that you have found your go-to system, and it brings hours of enjoyment to your game table, because that's what the solo experience is about. And when I talk in my videos, that's what I'm always trying to really get out there, is it's all about enjoying what you do. So, okay. Let me see here. Did I finish this comment? Ha ha ha, it's very similar to how I run modules solo. Sometimes I go to a different path, switch NPCs, and try to combine the plot from my own path and the modules. Alright, man. And that is awesome. Thank you very much for the comment. Thank you for all your great comments. And, you know, I can't say it enough. Thank you very much. So, let's get in to this. Let's talk about this. Now, this video is not about bashing one over the other or trying to say one is better than the other, because they're not. They are both standalone role-playing game systems, whether you get Scarlet Heroes or you get Mythic. The big difference between them is Scarlet Heroes is a, I'm going to say more or less like an advanced Dungeons& Dragons. Should I say advanced? More, I'm going to say it's a retro clone. So it's kind of in between basic and advanced Dungeons & Dragons, if for most of you out there that have played those systems can relate to. So it is based on the retro clone idea and the overall game mechanics. Now, if you choose to utilize this game system for that, that's what it is. That's what you're getting into. But as you can see from the cover, it's set in a Eastern type of setting. And I'll be honest with you, I like fantasy. I like European fantasy. And I don't mind ninja and samurai and all that stuff. But it's just one of those settings that I would have to say is not my go-to setting. But as far as the game goes, it's a very good game. The overall mechanics, particularly pertaining to combat, how they operate in this, are different compared to any D&D. And how do I really break that down? Instead of having a weapon and rolling a 1d8, and as some of you understand with an RPG system, if you were to roll a 7 on that 1d8, you're going to do 7 points of damage to the enemy. This has a different combat system in it, as to it goes by the number of hit die a particular encounter has. So if you, let's say, were battling an encounter that had 4 hit die, and you rolled a 1d6, and for an example, 1 through 2 would be 1, 3 through 4 would be 2, and then 5 through 6 would be 3. Meaning, if you rolled a 6, you would do 3 points, which means 3 hit die points. So that particular encounter would be left with 1 hit die point left, and then at that point they would be off the board. So that's where the game mechanic is different, and it is a unique game mechanic. But what I love about it is the solo content at the back of the book. So that is Scarlet Heroes, and I'm going to explain the differences between Scarlet Heroes solo emulator and Mythic. So let's talk about Mythic a little bit. Mythic is its own standalone role-playing game system. You can use this book and only this book, utilizing their game rules, to play Mythic as an RPG. The thing about Mythic that is different from Scarlet Heroes is that Mythic you can use for any role-playing game system. And when it comes to role-playing game systems for the tabletop, there's going to be 3 different dice mechanics out there. You're going to have D100, which you're going to be using 2 percentile dice, and imagine you know what that is. A D20, which if you played any newer version of Dungeons & Dragons, you know what a D20 system is. And then at that point, what I refer to as a silhouetted system or a D6 system, where you're using multiple D6s, and if you hit a 6, they pop. Meaning, if you hit a 6, you roll again and add it, and if you get another 6, you just keep rolling and adding and adding and adding. So, with this particular game system, it allows you to go in there and take any one of those systems and be able to convert that even to a dot system. Up here you can see, so if you are a Worlds of Darkness, or I should say a White Wolf Studios fan, to where they use the dot system over most traditional role-playing games where you had your abilities that you would roll and assign your numbers and percentages. So this right here gives you the ability to convert those systems to Mythic to be able to run those systems. So that's the one big, I have to say, perk to Mythic versus Scarlet Heroes. Scarlet Heroes is its own game system, period. Mythic you can conform any game system to Mythic. So now that we've got that out of the way and you understand that, let's talk about the emulators and where the emulators are different and why I have chosen to shelf this for this. And like I said, I'm not bashing one or the other at all here. That's not what it's about. So in Mythic, you have what they call the fate chart. Now, with the fate chart, how this is supposed to work, this is your oracle. And there are going to be a difficulty rank, a chaos factor that adds into that. And if you were to read on how the chaos factor affects the process and with the story, and you were to take that number and then at that point roll your percentage and cross that in this chart to give you a yes/no question. So essentially what this does is this is acting as a game emulator telling you yes, no, maybe, undecided. Pretty much, put it in a nutshell, that is Mythic and how Mythic operates with its emulator. You have the acting rank, and the acting rank is basically how you would I'm trying to think of the best way to articulate my words to explain this. So let's say your acting rank, you have a fighter, and he is swinging his great axe at this wooden door, trying to knock it down because the door is locked and he can't get past. So I would have to say, given, he's a fighter, he's got this humongous great axe. I would give him a above average acting rank to be able to get through that door. Now, at that point, the difficulty rank. So, where would the difficulty rank come in with this in determining the final outcome of the oracle? So, at that point, I would have to say the difficulty rank would be below average. I mean, it's a door. He's hitting an inanimate object with, it's inanimate. It's not a moving target or anything like that. So I would say it would be below average for him. So at that point, you would cross that and look, and you would have 80%, and your odds would be somewhat likely. And you would roll your percentage die, and at that point, it's going to give you, yes, the fighter knocked the door down, or no, the fighter, did not succeed, and at that point, would take your story in a different direction. So I'm sure there's going to be some people are going to say, you're not doing it right, you're not doing it right, you're not doing it right. And that's fine. The way that I had used the fate chart for my solo RPG and worked for me at that time. And I enjoyed it, but the difference between using the fate chart, and I have to say, it's a decent system. And a lot of people find it confusing. And I have to admit, reading through this book, it's trying to explain their system and how their RPG system runs, and then trying to explain how to take their RPG system and convert it over to the RPG system you are using to make it compatible with their fate chart. And that can be very confusing. It can be very, it's a lot to take in for not only a new gamer that's trying to solo game, that really doesn't have that many hours under their belt of gaming, and then trying to take this all in and figure this out, that can be a lot. And so that's one of the issues I have to say I ran into with myself, as I noticed with the fate chart, is it's more or less a yes-no type of oracle. And it's going to give you some odds. It's going to, over here, to help answer some questions. But for me, and this is my opinion, my personal opinion alone, at the end of the day, this particular system leaves me wanting more. And it's one of the reasons why I had moved on to Scarlet Heroes. So let's look at Scarlet Heroes and where the biggest difference is from Mythic to Scarlet Heroes, and why for me, now, like I said, I'm not bashing one or the other. I'm just saying, personally, for me, why this works way better for solo RPG. So let's get into that and take a look at it. So when it comes to the solo gaming aspect, and the thing that I really like about this is it has a very simple introduction here to solo gaming. It's one page, you read through it, it's going to explain different kind of adventures to you, imagination and using the oracles, threats, running adventures, and then after the adventure, how to possibly end it, or make threads to continue that story on and make more adventures from that. Now they have what's called the General Oracle. The General Oracle is a yes or no oracle, and it uses a 20-sided die. It's very simple. You look at the likelihood, and it's going to ask you almost impossible, very unlikely, unlikely, unknown to your question, likely, very likely, and then almost certain. So depending on, the situation in your solo gaming, what you're playing, And let's just use a example here. Let's say you have a character that's been on the run. He's wanted in a local town and is being, tracked down by the militia and other bounty hunters. He now enters a tavern. And is there any possible bounty hunters within that tavern that may recognize him? Well, we would have to say, we could say it's unlikely, but really, you don't know. So we're going to say, hey, that's unknown. Let's roll a 20-sider and see what the result of that is. So I rolled a 2, and 1 through 5 is a no. So definitely no. And it's very clear and concise. Now, the other cool thing about this oracle is there are 2 areas in here that say no, but, and yes, but. And the but is related to a complication that you roll a d6 on, and it's going to give you a little bit more information about that and a little bit more flavor to add into your game. So let's say that went the other way with the unknown question that we just used, and let's say he rolled a 9 instead. It would be no, there's not a bounty hunter in there, but let's roll the 3. An error in an assumption some NPC is making. Now this is where it gets really interesting. So right there, it's kind of helping move your story along. It's now bringing that NPC into your RPG and helping you integrate that. So you can go to, at that point, there is a huge section here for actors and NPCs, relationships and reactions. So let's see the NPC using that example, and it's in a tavern, so we're going to say he's a commoner, and the first bracket we want to roll on is a d8. So let's see the assumption that this NPC is making. So I roll the 1d8 and I'm in a 1. So they break it up pretty simple right here. As you can see, you got your numbers 1 through 2, 3 through 4, 5 through 6, 7 through 8. So we're going to be in this bracket right here, and I'm going to roll a 1d10, and let's see exactly. Hey, where am I? Oh, I need a d10. Where did my d10 go? It'll work. We'll use a percentage. A 6. So he's a cunning shipwright. So right there, it's adding that other aspect into your game. Well, he's a cunning shipwright, which means he's working on ships. Obviously, he's a shipwright, so there has to be a marina or a large coastal area near to where all this is happening, and perhaps what's going on here is rumors of what you are being accused of have spread wide, and people are starting to hear about it. So let's go a little bit more into this NPC and get a little bit more information off of him. Let's figure out which race that NPC is. So let's roll our 20-sider. So we know he's a shipwright. We rolled a 7. He's a human. And let's see. What is the actor's relationship? So what is your character's relationship to this particular NPC? Oh, I should have rolled a D100, and here I am rolling a 20. All right. Sorry, folks. It's been a long day for me. So I got that. Wow. Now that is peculiar. Brand new dice set here. Oh, it's hiding on me. There it is. So let's see what his relationship is here to our character's relationship to this NPC. And I rolled a 45. So the relationship to him and how he recognizes him is not because of rumors going around the marina. It's because our character here is blackmailing him and has some information that he's blackmailing him for, which is why he recognizes him. Ha ha ha. So the plot thickens. So let's see what his reaction is going to be. Well, if he's blackmailing him, he's going to be an unfriendly NPC. So let's go to the unfriendly and let's roll our 2d6, as it says, and see how his reaction is to our character here. He rolls a 7. Well, considered refusal. Well, yeah, you can see that. He's being blackmailed. So he's, at this point, took into consideration to keep his distance from our character. And maybe it's at this point, he's going to go and basically report us to the local guard, maybe, or even worse, maybe he's going to hire somebody to try to take the character out. So, moving on from there, let's go a little bit more into this NPC. What are the memorable traits of this NPC? So let's roll our D100. What does our character remember the most about this NPC? 67. So he has numerous piercings on his body. So that makes sense. He's working perhaps in a marina. He's around the pirate lifestyle and that type of influence. So maybe he has, several hoop piercings like, you would see depicted in some of the older stories like Treasure Island, or another good one is, oh my god, I'm trying to remember the name of the movie. Pirates of the Caribbean with Captain Jack Sparrow. When you think of the large gold hoop piercings and everything that you would associate with a pirate and a black eye patch and all that. Now, let's figure out what this NPC's ruling temperament is. So how does this NPC normally react when pretty much blackmailing them? Alright, let's see here. 83. He's shy, huh? Well, go imagine that. So, from what we can tell is he kind of looks like a pirate. He's a shipwright. He works in a marina, and we're blackmailing him, and he tends to be of a shy type of temperament. So maybe he tries to avoid confrontation. But what is that NPC's immediate desire? What is going through that NPC's mind right at this moment as our character walked into this tavern? And 36. So let's see what 36 is. Destroying evidence. So, as you can see how well that works out. So probably his immediate desire is to be able to gain access to the evidence that we have for our character, in which he is blackmailing him for. So you could see why I say I enjoy this solo emulator over Mythic. And that's one of the reasons why I do, because, the section on NPCs, in my opinion, is, second to none. I mean, it really, really helps as a solo player to bring those NPCs to life into your games and to make your games more interesting. Now, moving on from there, where I said, in the beginning of this, where I said Scarlet Heroes is a game system unto itself in its own system, but the unique thing about this solo section of it is you can really use this particular emulator for any RPG system that you're playing. Now, there will have to be some minuscule changes that you will have to do to it. And what I mean by that is, in here, it's going to give you human ethnicity. And it's going to go into its ethnicity for this particular game. So you could either use that, or you could put in your own from there. Which, I mean, most times if you're solo RPGing, you're going to add on and expand to this as well. So I don't think that's really going to be, that big of a deal. But as you move on through this, it gets into urban adventures. It gives you urban adventure plots and crimes. So you could, if you wanted to play a module to where you're in the city, and you want to add more into that, and really have some, how do I put this? Have some intrigue and mystery and skullduggery, with a city encounter. This is an excellent way to do it. So let's see what we come up with here for a solo idea for an urban adventure plots and crimes. So I rolled a 1. An antagonist seeks the assassination of a target. Draw or choose either the antagonist or target, whichever your hero is most likely to care about. Draw the unknown actor, only after successfully investigating scene, spent discovering their identity. Scenes revolve around identifying the assassins, learning when and how they are to strike, and protecting the target from one or more attempts on their life. So you can see right there, it gives you some really good story ideas that are simple, and if you don't know where to start, you can just go right there, and it's going to help you get started into a solo game. Now, below it, it's got a couple of other tables. So the first one is sample crimes. So let's see what are some of the sample crimes that, and we're just going to roll randomly. And this is force. So it breaks it up into 3 trees on the D6. You got force, theft, and corruption. So on force, let's roll the D8 and see what kind of force. Manipulation, which is pretty unique. And that could go back into the NPC we just talked about in the previous section. Then it goes into crime details. So let's see the crime details, how that's going to work out there. So the first one I rolled is going to be why no action, because the victim is poor. That's kind of unique. So the victim is poor, so the local government is not going to really give 2 hoots about what they have going on in their lives. Okay, so moving on from there, you get into the urban adventure scene, and they have investigation scenes, conflict scenes, and then action scenes, and it gives you multiple random tables to be able to roll and help you move that story along and move through there. It goes into potential foes, it goes into urban locations, fight difficulty, foe statistics. Now, as you can see, as I said, with this particular game system where some things will have to be changed, let me see if I can get this into view so you can see what I'm talking about here. So if you look at those foe statistics, that's for it's for a basic edition, the older editions of D&D, because you're going to have your hit dice, your AC, the plus to hit or your hit bonus, your damage, the morale, your skill bonus, and your move. Now, that's not to say that you, whatever game system you're playing, you cannot use this template and add in whatever it is to be able to help you along, because it's very easily done and there's, very little work. I should say with this, there's a really less work that's going to go into this particular system than Mythic. Mythic, you're going to have to put a little bit more work, you're going to have to do a little bit more reading, and you may have to read some sections several times before you actually say, aha. And don't feel bad about that. That's sometimes with game books. Sometimes you have to do that. And after reading it a couple of times, you're like, okay, now I understand what you're talking about. It's just the way that they present it and write it out sometimes. In the writer's mind, it's clear and concise. It's their idea, and they feel as if it's going to come across to where everybody's going to understand it, but not everybody does. And so, do not feel discouraged if you're running into that with Mythic, because you're not the only one. So moving on with this particular solo here, it goes into wilderness adventures, and it's going to break that down, and it's going to go into terrain types, terrain features, feature details, wilderness events. That's going to also help you if you want to do a wilderness solo type of adventure. And then the last section goes into dungeon adventures. And so if you really like the old school dungeon crawls, you're going to love this section. This section is going to give you dungeon types, sizes, and inhabitants. So everything to stock a dungeon randomly, it's going to go into common dungeon inhabitants. And it's going to break it down by basic, minion, elite, boss, mage, and civilian. Which is really, really, really cool. So, I mean, there's a lot of good stuff in here for solo enthusiasts. There really is. I can't tell you how much I really love this book. And it's one of the reasons why I don't use Mythic anymore. Right here, dungeon threat adjustment. So you can go in. Let's roll 2d6. Let's just see what our dungeon threat adjustment is. So I have rolled an 8. So 6 through 10. The danger is roughly as anticipated. The threat is equal to the PC's level. Well, that will definitely make things interesting. At least you know you have a fair fight on your hands. So then it goes from there into dungeon places, loot, and dangers. Also very cool. Local content. So is it an encounter? Is it treasure? Is it a hazard? Is it a feature? If you're struggling there, what should I put in this room? Particularly when you're playing solo, if you're doing a dungeon crawl, this will help answer that. You can just take your 10-sider as you're creating your dungeon and moving along and say, what is in that room? It's a number 3. So what is in there? We have an encounter? Wait, let me see how they have... nothing. The room is empty. So let's go to the next room. What is in that room? We rolled a 6, and it is still empty. So until we get up to about 8. And at 8, is there an encounter? Yes. Is there treasure? Which is H, and H, I would have to think, is a hazard. And then it moves on from there. Hazard? No, because they're putting a hazard where the treasure should be. H is hidden. Oh, okay. Never mind. I read that wrong. Sorry, pardon my ignorance there. H is hidden. If the treasure, but no encountered, add +3 to the hazard roll. So if it comes up H, it's telling you that your treasure is hidden. And then it goes into the hazard. So if you do have a hazard on a roll of 10, there will be a hazard in that room. And if there's a feature on a 9 or 10, you're going to have a feature. So the treasure found, it even gives you a table for that. What kind of treasure you found, what kind of encounter you have ran into, and what kind of hazard. All the way to the nature of the feature. It goes into inanimate feature quality, creature motivation. And this is a really good one. This is really good, particularly with your encounters, because sometimes when you play solo, it's really hard to try to run your characters and think of their best interest, and then how do you strategically place the encounters you're fighting and still make it interesting. So this right here, I do like this table because it'll answer some of these questions for you. So let's just roll a random and see what the creature's motivation is. And we rolled a 7. Sabotage, a vital feature, 1d4 locations away. So that is very interesting. You know, you're dealing with a particular encounter in that dungeon, and when you get 4 locations or 4 rooms for where you're currently at, you're going to have something sabotaged. You're going to be running into a hazard that's already going to be there. So it's very cool. Very cool. And then it goes into example of specific features, and it's got this whole section right here of specific features. It goes into dungeon inhibitant details and even breaks it down. I mean, everything from vermin, minions, beasts, elites, mages, bosses, combat style, and quirks of a foe. That's really interesting. I mean, it's well thought out. So I rolled a 1 on the D8, and it says, hate to attack a prepared foe. Vastly prefers ambushes. So it helps you when you're placing your encounters on the board, and you're thinking, how are these guys going to move in advance? Are they just all going to rush my character at one time? Are they going to be very tactical about it, and maybe they're going to pull some wolf techniques to where my character might be lured over here only to be ambushed by these two he doesn't see right there, and so on and so forth. So it helps you with that. It helps put that into the game system and takes some of that work off of you and gives you more time to enjoy the game. It goes in from combat style and quirks of a foe to their first round of action in a fight. So after the first round, you can roll the d10, and it's going to help even continue that more for your solo RPG. So I rolled a 2. And the first one I rolled, he said he hates to attack and prefers preferred foe, vastly prefers. Basically, let's put this in a nutshell. He doesn't like fighting fair. He would rather do an ambush. We'll leave it at that. But after the first round, all-out attack, charging in heedlessly. So, you know, you're dealing with a guy here. He doesn't really, he prefers an ambush. He figures at this point, you know, he has nothing left to lose, so let's just charge in and, you know, all or nothing. So it really does help. I have to admit, it does help if you're struggling with that. And these are some of the, you know, ideas and questions and things that this is going to give you that Mythic doesn't. And I'm going to get into that in a little bit and explain to you why and the difference between the systems to help you make a better decision over what system is better for you. So going towards the end, I'm going to wrap this up real quick with this, is if you are facing disaster, the heroes will, and it has a table that'll help you continue your story on there. And then it's going to give you some samples of monsters' special abilities. So, you know, with that, that's going to depend on the system you're playing. You know, that's going to vary from system to system. All monsters are going to be different, and some of them are going to have different abilities, you know, just depending on the game system you're playing and the time setting it's in, and so on and so forth. So, the very end of the solo section, it gives you one more page that you can read, and it's an example of solo play. So you can read through this, and at that point, it's going to familiarize you with how to use those tables and how to integrate them in and run them. So this is the reason why I have switched over to Scarlet Heroes. This particular system really works well with my style of gaming and what I enjoy for gaming. Now, as you know from watching my videos, I really enjoy using 3D minis on the board and including my three-dimensional area like miniatures to where I have my line of sight and I have all of that. You know, that really is my cup of tea, I should say. So if you are that type of solo RPG player, you are kind of like my mindset. If you can see it, you can kill it. I would suggest looking at Scarlet Heroes. Scarlet Heroes is going to favor your gaming taste much more. And you're going to have those tables readily available for you to help your gaming keep moving and running much smoother. And it's going to answer a lot of questions and it's going to help you through a lot of things. Particularly, one of the main questions I see a lot of people say, I don't know where to start. How do I start? This is going to answer that for you. This is going to help you get started, push you in that right direction, and keep things flowing for you. Mythic, on the other hand, if you are a theater of the mind type of RPG player, you kind of are like, you look at this and say, this is not RPG. This is RPG. It's all in my imagination. Mythic's going to be a good system for you. Mythic is, at that point, going to answer more of your yes-no questions. The Oracle is going to favor towards that. Or if you enjoy playing an RPG system that is far more story-orientated, to where you enjoy the RPG that you really don't have a whole lot of combat in your RPGs. It's more story. You're more concerned about how your character, I should say, advances and reacts to his environment through the decisions. Then Mythic will be a good system for you. And it will probably be the way you want to go with that. And that's the way I would suggest that. Now, like I said, I'm not at all bashing Mythic, and I'm not at all praising 100% Scarlet Heroes. I'm just saying, for my gaming taste, I prefer Scarlet Heroes over Mythic, particularly the solo variant of it. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's up to you making the decision what's best for your game table. Now, with that, knowledge, what I would suggest is, before you buy either one, okay, what I would do is go to RPG Now. RPG Now, if you search Mythic, you're going to find that just the game emulator part in here, the Oracle, is free to download on a PDF. So what I would suggest doing is get that PDF first and download it and see what it's about and give it a go with your RPG system. See how you like it. If you have come to the conclusion with like my style of gaming that this leaves it leaves you wanting more, then at that point I would say take a look at Scarlet Heroes and see what Scarlet Heroes has to offer. Now, this is just your basic game master emulators, and that's all it is. You're going to get some decent random tables with this, and even in Mythic, in this version, you're going to get some random tables in here as well that are going to help you answer some questions in underneath randomness. It's going to say event, meaning, action. on a D100, and it's going to give you a keyword to help integrate into your story and the event meaning of a subject. So it does give you, at that point, some randomness to help you with the story. But like I said, the way that I view Mythic and I look at Mythic, if you are a theater of the mind, you enjoy theater of the mind, you enjoy that type of RPG, by all means, I think you will like Mythic, and Mythic will fit in well. If you game like me, if you can see it, you can kill it, I suggest Scarlet Heroes. So, I hope this video helped answer some questions and got some confusion out of the way. You know, because I've seen a lot of people like, well, what are you talking about? What do you mean you don't use Mythic anymore? And, well, that's the reason why I do not use Mythic, and I've been using Scarlet Heroes, and I've, really like it, and I use it all the time. It's a great system. Now, with that, I do not use just Scarlet Heroes alone. I will also, at that point, integrate random tables also in with my game systems that give me more randomness when needed, and to be able to add that extra flavor into my game. So that's another thing to consider. Now, if you're just getting into this and you're looking for somewhere to start and you decided to buy Scarlet Heroes and go with it, what I would do is don't go and buy a bunch of random table books. Utilize this. Digest this. And then when you have used it up and you are at that point so comfortable with this section that at that point you're wanting to add even more and expand this more, it's at that point I would start getting some random tables like I showed you and integrating them into your game and helping to expand more and more and more. So, alright guys, I think that's where I'm going to leave this video off. And as always, if you like the video, please click the like button. And if you have not subscribed to my channel and you enjoy RPG games and you're looking to possibly get back into solo RPG, but hey, maybe you don't have anybody there to game master for you or what have you, go ahead, click that subscribe button followed by the bell icon, and every time I upload something you'll be notified of it, and maybe you'll find a video or some content that will help you out and get you in that right direction. Alright guys, this is Artichoke Dip signing off. Thanks a lot for the great comments, guys. Thank you very much. I will talk to you later.